Welcome to the AI Business News Desk. I'm Terry Sweeney, contributing editor to AI Business, and joining us now is Asha Saxena, CEO and founder of World Leaders in Data and AI. She's also runs the AI Factor Institute for Strategy. Asha, thanks so much for joining us on the
Thank you for
AI
having
Business
me.
News Desk. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Our topic, of course, is redesigning the enterprise for this brave new world of AI that is upon us. AI agents, digital humans have moved from pilots to production. Um, Talk a little bit, if you will, about how enterprise leaders need to adjust in terms of how they design work, teams, and decision making with AI completely transforming so many of them.
I truly believe that what an exciting time that we started our journey with large language models,
Sure.
when ChatGPT came out in November 2022. And very quickly, our organizations became really curious about what these LLM can do for their organizations. And we call it the era of Gen AI. The whole 2023 where organization invested in really seeing how they can bring generative AI in their organization. And now we're very fast moving towards AI agent. And as you think about these agents who can do not only take a direction from you, but also execute a task, it is phenomenal how our workforce is going to change. In fact, I started writing my book 2 years back called The Digital Human Advantage. And the whole concept was that we will be living in this world which has humans as our employees, but we also will have coworkers who are agents and digital human or digital twins who will also be working with us very, collaboratively.
Sure. It feels safe to assume that these digital twins will also increase in intelligence as the technology improves, as our comfort level with them increases, those sorts of things. Is that what you see
Absolutely.
from your
So
perspective?
in my research, I really spent a lot of time thinking about and talking to organizations about how are they adopting these agents right now. It's very early on, but I talk about this framework called child to sage model, which is how these models will start as a child, learning, making mistakes, and then get to the sage stage, which is the intelligence stage, to be able to execute on the task. So I think in this era, it is so important that we change our mind shift. How leaders really think about operating and building these operating models within the enterprise-wide systems, from moving away from task-based systems. He said, do this job, this is your job, responsibility. For humans, it was very task-oriented or process-oriented. And then we shifted from task oriented to strength oriented, where we said AI brings this strength, and this is what the humans bring. So let's upgrade the human to be able to execute these tasks through these agents. And very quickly, we're going to move to the capability based model, operating model, which would be focusing on what the organization capability is. So I think that mind shift truly has to change from just task oriented to capacity oriented mind shift.
Sure, but the organizational impact is huge here. I mean, I'm just thinking of like business schools, lines of business managers, basically anybody who has P&L responsibility for a
Yes,
business unit isn't just managing humans or working. It's going to change work culture, work philosophies, management
absolutely.
philosophies that we've held so dear. Uh,
And I think that's why we all need to, I teach at Columbia University as a professor. And I also travel around the globe teaching the AI factor through the Institute of Strategy. I travel around the world teaching the faculty development program on how faculty now need to teach our business students, health sciences students, marketing, really varied fields, because the domain experts need to know how to use AI
sure.
as the enabler to execute efficiency, create outcomes, and really think about how business can use AI as a tool to accelerate growth. And so I very strongly believe that we need our faculty to be ready to teach our students
Sure.
to be ready for AI and how we're going to use AI as a co-partner in our work systems.
In terms of end user organizations, how would you grade their ability to absorb this, their openness to it?
Yeah, it's a very early on. I work with major organization, Fortune 1000 organizations, And what I see is that a lot of publicly traded companies are very engaged in learning about AI. They want to apply AI within the workforce. And they'll, a lot of time will ask me, Asha, where do we start? But the right question really is, what do we want to get best at as an organization? Where do we want to excel? And focusing on what capability you want to build as an organization, where do you want to excel? And AI is an enabler. But I think we are right now in the phase where we are so hyped up about this technology AI that we want to jump right in. And I think what we need to invest in is really thinking about what outcomes we want to focus on.
There is this sense that they have to keep up with their competitors
Yes.
or their colleagues. And what you're suggesting is, let's start with a use case. Like,
Yes.
what do you need the organization to do or to do better?
Exactly. So we can jump on to the use case as you just brought it up. I think a lot of times the organizations are also thinking about thousands of use cases. So there's no shortage of use cases. When I'm working with the C-suite leaders, what I'm really focusing on is really thinking about their strategic plan. Think about what your strategy for your organization is, and then use AI as a tool. AI is not the end game. It's not the focus on technology. The focus needs to be on the business and the value add.
Sure. Well, let's dig in there a little bit. What strategic mistakes do you see organizations making repeatedly, and what separates that from those who are actually creating real value with their pilots or their actual production AI?
That's a great question, because there's been a study by MIT and McKinsey wrote about that 95% of the projects are still in the pilot phases and they're not showing any value. So scaling these pilots has become a real big challenge. So what I talk about, what I see organizations who are actually doing the right thing are kind of coming out of just use cases for the sake of use cases, because
Okay.
everybody's thinking about AI and coming up with use cases and doing these pilots. And then they realize that what's missing is the consolidated architecture, ready for AI.
Okay.
That includes the infrastructure, data, and the appropriate use cases that can scale. The second thing which I also see a lot of organizations missing is because they see AI as a technology project. And so a lot of times these AI projects are sitting in the lab or as a hobby projects instead of really going out in business. And this needs to be a business transformation initiative, not a technology initiative. So I think the second challenge is the technology. It's not just a technology initiative, it has to be a business initiative.
Sure. So we're talking about value, and I think it's important to define value in this instance. Are we talking about reducing headcounts,
Yes,
improving
that's a great point.
productivity, just streamlining
Absolutely. So
the mundane tasks?
in the book I wrote, The AI Factor, I talk about exactly what you're talking about. It's 4 quadrant I talk about. And I talk about value in either the first quadrant, which is, we call it an optimizer, that you want to really focus on cutting costs and creating efficiency within your organization. And a lot of enterprises are kind of sitting in the optimizer quadrant right now because they see AI as a optimizer, real optimizer. The second quadrant is, we call it an expansion. So you're trying to expand to your different markets, growth. So the second quadrant is really focusing on your growth and thinking about how can I expand my market. The third is the innovator. If you're an innovator quadrant, you're more like a pharmaceutical company who's doing drug development, or you're a retail organization, you want to launch new products. So innovators are using AI to really think about how do I innovate my products and services. And the last quadrant where I see AI is as a multiplier, where how do I redesign my organization? So really thinking about which quadrant do you sit in and how do you want to use AI? And that's why I think I always start with the strategic plan. Think about where your strategic value needs to be, what is your big business goals, and then you focus on value when you're working on your AI projects.
Thanks. Asha, real briefly now, we know that steering committees for AI exist mostly in name, but what does a true AI steering committee look like if it can drive competitive advantage, government, enterprise-wide management, those sorts of things?
It's such an important piece of an organization when you're doing a enterprise-wide scaling of AI. You cannot do it without having a good, solid steering committee. So the most important thing about steering committees is to have the right people in the room. So you want to make sure that you have all the business functions, your legal, your risk, your compliance. You want to have your business heads, it could be supply chain, your operations, your delivery. You want to have your sales marketing teams. You want to have your CFO, COO, CEO in the room. One thing which a lot of organizations do wrong is that it becomes a CEO initiative or it becomes a COO initiative and led by internal team. I always say hiring someone externally who can see it from outside. So they have a clear picture of where your organization is missing the boat or where you're missing the points. So thinking about steering committee as a governance play where you're
Sure.
actually looking at your risk, your ethics, your responsibility, but you're also looking at the value. Are you really, as we keep going back to value because a lot of these projects becomes science project. They become these use cases in your
Right,
lab.
right.
So really thinking about are we bringing value to the business, truly to the business, and you have to make sure that you're checking and measuring over time. So really critical you operate your steering committee appropriately, so that's not just the name, but and it doesn't become the roadblock. It's
Right.
truly to monitor progress and making sure that we have outcome while we are governing, because we do need guardrails with AI. Being
Indeed.
responsible is important.
All right. Well, Asha Saxena, thank you so much for joining us on the AI Business News Desk.
Thank you so much for having me.
Some great insights.
Wonderful.
All right.
Thank you.
We've been talking with Asha Saxena, CEO and founder of World Leaders in Data and AI. This has been Terry Sweeney for AI Business. Thanks for joining us for this segment. See you next time.